It's time to look at the top two finishes for the Aero road bike category in 2020's Bike of the Year, that being Trek's Madone SL6 and Cube's brand new C68X Lightning Pro. Each year we test around 30 bikes for Bike of the Year. These bikes start arriving around October time, and then we just put them through their paces, hundreds of hours, thousands of miles, throughout the worst the British winter can throw at you, which mainly means rain, to come to the conclusion and find the best bikes out there. Now the bikes are getting better and better every year, and for 2020 this was no different. Obviously we can't test all the bikes that are out there, so we sit down, we debate, we shortlist, and we come up with what we think are the most exciting bikes for 2020. Now some of that depends on availability, some of that depends on the brands that want to be involved, but rest assured the bikes that we get in are thoroughly tested, and we think we're coming up with the best options for your next bike. Now just like any BikeRadar review, I'll run you through what the genre is, what we're looking for, how well these bikes are equipped, what the specifications are like, most importantly how they ride, and then we'll come up with the winner for this category. Now for these Aero bikes, we didn't do any wind tunnel testing, we're purely going off the ride impressions. We think that's more important because you're riding in real world conditions, you're dealing with different road surfaces, you're dealing with different weather conditions, etc. And a bike has to work in its natural environment, not just in the lab conditions. So if you have any questions for me or the team, please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more independent reviews from BikeRadar. So what defines something as an Aero road bike? Well, it's the singular pursuit of beating the wind. It's the singular pursuit of making a super fast bike. So that tends to be, the ride position is even more aggressive than a race bike. The tube sections are much bigger, much deeper. They're almost kind of approaching time trial bike type dimensions. On earlier bikes, that meant a trade-off between weight and aerodynamics. On this latest generation of bike, the weight penalty is getting less and less. So within the Aero category, we've limited the price from between £2,500 to £4,000. Now that presents some real challenges for Aero bikes. As you can imagine, most of the Aero bikes out there are kind of hyper cutting edge machines, and that means lots and lots of development costs, lots and lots of expensive integrated parts. It really raises the price. And up until now, when you were looking at those real cutting edge machines, you were being priced out of it. That's where the new Madone SL comes in. Now the Madone, one of the most advanced Aero bikes out there, but it's an Aero bike with a difference. They've maintained the ISO-speed system that they developed for the cobble bust in Domani. They've introduced this compliant back end onto a really advanced Aero machine. But last year, cost of entry into getting a Madone, over £6,000. For this year, it's under £4,000, £3,900 for the SL6. Impressive stuff, but how have they done it? Quite simple really, they've just made some alterations to the front end. The SLR version of the Madone comes with an integrated Madone stem that routes all the cables internally and leading to this kind of really expensive cockpit. Now on this bike, Trek have done away with that. They've just made an adaptive system for the headset spacers so all the cables can still route internally down through the front end of the head tube, but it's running in a traditional aluminium bar and stem setup. So, Cube's new Lightning C68X. Now the previous Lightning was much more of your pure race bike genre. It was all about being a lightweight bike. This new one has had a full Aero makeover. But where Cube have been really clever is by using their existing technology, the C68 technology, which is a twin mold carbon process of building a bike. With a twin mold, what you have is you have a solid outer mold and you also have a solid core mold. So this means that the smoothness of the outside is absolutely replicated in the inside. It also means you get a much better carbon to resin ratio. So you're producing a very aerodynamic design, but you're not overusing the amount of carbon that goes into it and overusing the amount of resin. So you're keeping the weight down. So now with the C68X process, what they've introduced is far more iterations of carbon fiber using it. There's more than 6 different types of carbon, and it's all laid up, optimized perfectly into ensuring the bike's absolutely stiff where it needs to be, has a little bit of compliance where it needs it, and also in lots of non-key areas, they can just reduce the weight down and down. So this is a full-on Aero machine, yet the frame is under 1 kilo. That's impressive for an Aero road bike, and it's reflected in the overall weight of this bike, which is sub 8 kilos. Not often you see that on a full-on Aero disc bike. You compare that to the Trek Madone. Now the Trek is nearly 1 kilo heavier, which seems like a big penalty, but what Cube have done with the carbon technology here is to introduce a little bit of compliance. Trek have gone down a much more complex route. The compliance that you're getting from the Madone is far, far greater, which we can talk more about when we get to the way these bikes ride. So moving on to the components, and there are some really interesting things going on here. If we start off with the Cube, up front they've got their new cockpit system. It's a one-piece bar and stem called the ICR. Now, one-piece bar and stems are a really good way to bring some real big aerodynamic gains into a bike, because you've got this completely flat leading edge. It's a really very nice, neat solution. And it's ideas like this that have been brought into the Lightning that makes it 30% more aerodynamically efficient than the old Lightning. Contrast that with the front end on the Madone, where you get a pretty traditional Bontrager aluminium stem, into which is plugged Bontrager's VRCF Aero bar. It's an aluminium bar, but it's Aero shaped, and it does feature inserts that help dampen the vibrations from rough road surfaces. And it works really well, especially in conjunction with really high quality, really well padded Bontrager bar tape. So as you expect on a sub 4 gram bike, we're in Shimano Ultegra territory here. There are differences though. On the Trek, it's full mechanical Ultegra with a fairly racy spec but still sporty 5034 chain set with an 1128 cassette out the back. The hydraulic Ultegra brakes are matched to Icetech rotors, exactly what we want to see. Cube, however, have managed to squeeze a little bit more value in. They've opted to go Ultegra Di2, but they've given you an even broader gear range. You've got a 5034 on the front and a super wide 1132 on the back. Now, having that wider spread, it's really quite a nice thing, especially if you're really, really deep into a ride, you've got a big climb ahead of you. Just having those extra little lighter gears just to spin your legs through, you know, always welcome here. So moving on to the wheels, there are some differences here too. On the Cube, it's German brand Neumann with their R32 setup. Now, the R32s are an aluminium rim, 32mm deep, nice and broad, good blunt aero shape. Not a bad weight, they're around sort of 1700 grams a pair, maybe just a little bit shy of that. And they perform really, really well. They're shod with really nice tyres. Schwalbe's 1 TLE, so that's the tubeless ready version of the 1. Fortunately, they don't come set up tubeless. But again, when you're buying a bike at this price, at your local Cube dealer, we would recommend that you get the bike set up tubeless at point of purchase. But when you compare those to the wheels that come on the Trek Madone, Bontrager's Aeolus Comp 5, then you can see that the Bontragers have a serious aero advantage over that. It's a 50mm deep rim, proper blunt aero shape. This isn't a pure carbon wheel. What it is a super shallow aluminium rim onto which a structural carbon fairing is bonded to it. Now, that keeps the cost of manufacture down, but you still get the true aero advantages. But it does have an effect on weight. So these wheels, about 1800 grams a pair. That's not bad for a 50mm deep wheel, but you can find significantly lighter, even from Bontrager themselves. These Bontrager wheels, they're wrapped with Bontrager's own R3 tyre. That comes with a hard case casing, so it's very puncture resistant, good hard wearing tyre for adverse conditions. But we would probably quite like to see a tubeless setup on this bike, but the wheels aren't tubeless compatible, neither are the tyres. So that becomes quite a major upgrade should you want to go down that route at a later date. So how do these two compare out on the road? It's quite an interesting one because the Cube Lightning is a very, very light bike, so it feels very quick to accelerate. It feels kind of race bike, nimble. It climbs supremely well because of that low weight going on there. But on the converse side of that, it's firm. It's a really quite a stiff bike. The front end, that ICR bar, quite a smart idea because the actual stem piece is really quite thin, and you do get a little bit of flex in it. So when you are hitting really chattery stuff, the front end does feel reasonably controlled, reasonably comfortable. It kind of kills vibrations really well. Out back, however, it's a little bit firmer, and that's even with Cube's own saddle. The Nuance saddle is one of the latest line of kind of short saddles, so it's well padded, but it doesn't go over the fact that the back end does feel firm, even in relation to the front. Overall though, if you're looking for a supremely fast bike with an aggressive ride position that doesn't have the weight penalty of a lot of aero bikes, the Cube is a fabulous option. But then we come to the Madone, and this really, it's almost a game-changing chassis on the Madone. By introducing ISOSpeed into it, it's just created an aero road bike that has no right being this comfortable. It is so smooth, it's sportive bike comfortable. It's quite maddening just how smooth this bike feels. And yeah, you are paying a little bit of a penalty on weight, because some of the component choices, like the wheels, like the cockpit, etc. But on the road, you just don't feel that. All you feel is a very, very fast bike, and it's fast and it's comfortable and it's controlled. You can ride this on the crappiest of surfaces and it just completely counters them, it completely smooths them out. And it's not just that, you know, you can also tune the ride of the ISOSpeed. On the top end ISOSpeed SLR, that front end comfort is adjustable. Now that's something you'd think would be reserved for superbikes. It's on this model, so you get that full adjustability too. So you can tune the ride to how you want it. With that comfort instilled into it and the smoothness of the ride, it means you can hold that speed for longer. Fatigue sets in less. It's just a stunning achievement, a stunning accomplishment. You know, and I'll say it again, an Aero road bike has no business being this comfortable. What Trek have done with this Madone is pretty astonishing. So in conclusion, this fight out for the top spot. On paper, it doesn't look that close. Yeah, the Cube is £100 more expensive, but it does come with Di2. It does get that super clever carbon one-piece bar. But when you look at the Trek, yeah, it may have slightly weightier wheels. Yeah, it may just have an aluminium cockpit. But at the heart of any bike, it has to be the chassis, the key important things, the ride quality, everything about it. And it's here the Trek just outperforms pretty much every other bike that was in this category. And this is the absolute epitome of a bike that's so much greater than the sum of its parts. It's just an astonishingly accomplished ride. And for that reason, and pretty much that reason alone, it's our Aero Bike of the Year for 2020. So the 2020 Aero Bike of the Year has thrown up a real surprise, and that's an aero bike that's not only fast, it's also supremely comfortable. The Trek Madone, astonishing machine. But tell us what you think your Aero Bike of the Year would be. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course click on the bell, because then you'll be notified every time we upload a new video.